Hello everybody, Dr. P here. In this video I will cover Math 10C polynomials. This is topic 5, example 2 on page 47 in your workbook. So in this example we will continue factoring difference of squares, but this time we add to this that we also have a common factor. It is a really good idea to always start by checking for a common factor whenever you're factoring. Okay, that's what you start with. So if we take a look at this first example here, we have 5x squared minus 45. Now, is this a difference of squares the way it's written here? Well, it is a binomial. It has two terms. Okay, the first term is not a perfect square. X squared is a perfect square, but not 5x squared. You cannot take the square root of 5, okay, and get a whole number. Same thing with 45. 45 is not a perfect square. However, if we take a look at the two terms, we notice that both of them can be divided by 5, which means we can factor out a 5. So let's do that. We're going to factor out a 5. We remove a 5. Oops. We remove a 5. And then inside the bracket, we're left with an x squared and a 9. Because 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times negative 9 is negative 45. Now, if we take a look at what's inside this bracket, we notice that x squared minus 9 is a perfect, or it's a difference of square. X squared is a perfect square, 9 is a perfect square. So now we can go ahead and factor what's in the bracket as a difference of squares. So the 5 just carries. Then we can put in our two brackets. Square root of x squared is just x. Square root of 9 is 3. And then we put a plus and a minus. Okay. Let's look at B here. Again, 8x cubed is not a perfect square, neither is 50x. So let's see if we can factor out a common factor. We can factor out a 2x here. Okay, if I factor out a 2x from 8x cubed, I'm left with 4x squared. And if I factor out a 2x from 50x, I'm left with 25. And now we're left with, well, 2x outside a bracket, and inside a bracket we do have a difference of squares. So we can go ahead and factor that difference of squares. The 2x just carries. We put in our two brackets. Square root of 4x squared is 2x. Square root of 25 is 5. And then we put in our plus and our minus. Right? Let's have a look at the next example here. Same sort of thing. We have a binomial, but this is not a difference of squares. So because the first term is not a perfect square, neither is the second one. So let's see if we can factor out a common factor. We can factor out a 2 for both 18 and 32. So if I factor out a 2 or divide out a 2, we're left with 9x squared, and we're left with 16y squared. Now what's left in the bracket is a difference of squares. You can factor that as a difference of squares. So the 2 just carries. We put in our two brackets. And then square root of 9x squared is 3x. Square root of 16y squared is 4y. And then we put our plus and our minus. Okay, one more example. Again, 16x cubed is not a perfect square, neither is 100xy squared. So we have to see if we can factor out common factor, we're able to factor out a 4x. Okay, if I factor out a 4x from the first term, I'm left with 4x squared, right? And you can always sort of check this as you go. You can say, well, 4x squared times 4x, 4x times 4x squared is indeed 16x cubed. Okay, so we got that one right. So it's a good idea to check. Erase that red, oops, red mark there. Yes, I can't. For some reason I can't erase. Okay, I can't erase that. That's fine. All right, and then the second term, if you factor out a 4x from 100xy squared, we're left with, well, 100 divided by 4 is 25. And then the x is not there anymore. It's been removed. It's out here. So it's 25y squared. And now, if we look at what's in the bracket, we do have a difference of squares. So we can move on. The 4x just carries. And then we can factor the difference of squares. So square root of 4x squared is 2x. Square root of 25y squared is 5y. And then we put in our plus and our minus. All right, so that's a wrap. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the math be with you. See ya, folks.